Hello and welcome back to Beckler Guitars and Repair, and today we're looking at something pretty special. So here it is. A 1967 J-45ADJ. So the ADJ after the J-45 just means adjustable bridge. As you can see here, it's got the screws that you can adjust it up and down. This is a ceramic bridge. Some of the earlier models had rosewood, and some of the later models after this had plastic. So what's kind of cool about this guitar is it appears it's a very rare finish. I can't really find too many examples on the internet, but this one is an iced tea burst. Most of these are cherry sunburst. And after doing a little bit of digging for this one, there had some people had mentioned that this might be a cherry sunburst that is faded, but there's no way that the cherry would have faded this much, like into an actual brown. I can't find any other examples like that. The closest things I can find is the iced tea burst, so I'm going to go ahead and call this one an iced tea burst finish. So I found this one locally. Someone's grandparent had passed away and this was passed on, and they were just finally looking to get rid of it. So I went and had a look and played it, and it needed a little bit of work, but overall it's in fairly good condition. So a couple of things I noticed right off the bat. There's some clouding on the finish. Someone might have used some sort of cleaning product on it at some point and just give it a little bit of clouding. There's some finish checking throughout, some deeper than others. There's a couple spots where it appears to go into the wood, but we're going to check that out later with a flashlight method. The original pick guard is lifting in a few spots, but nothing majorly, but it's definitely there. And I've already given this one a fret polish. So there was a little bit of wear on the frets, but when I restrung it, I buffed up those frets, and it plays really nice now with no low action. And the frets are in good shape. There's no buzzing anywhere either. It also looks like someone has replaced the original tuners. So these are vintage made in Germany Schallers, which are nice tuners as well. See if I can get this camera to focus here. There we go. And it looks like no other screw holes were drilled, so those are kind of a nice upgrade. And there's our serial number 070576, which dates this to a 1967. And I'll show you the truss rod after we do our specs here, but it appears that the truss rod's never been touched. It's still got the paint on it from factory. And the original bone nut. So yeah, this is looking nice. On the backwards, where you can see some more of, there's some pretty substantial finish checking on the back and sides. So definitely through the finish, not quite through to the wood, I don't believe, but we'll check that with a flashlight test later. And then on the back, it appears there's some kind of like white specks that I tried to clean up with some polish and buffing, but they're not really coming out. It seems like maybe someone used a cleaning product at one point that kind of reacted with the finish, kind of left this cloudy white spots. So it's just cosmetic, but it doesn't look the best. I'm more of a player myself than a collector, so a lot of this wouldn't really bother me because this guitar really sounds good and plays nicely. But yeah, it's important to document any sort of issues that the guitar has. And then this spot right here, just one sec here. Yeah, this spot right here, it looks like it's had a crack or something taken out of it. There's some finish missing, and it looks like there's been a drop fill there with some varnish or lacquer. But it's filled, it feels okay. It's better than having an open wood, I believe, there anyway. And then over here, there's a little bit of finish checking. And it looks like the frets are nice and smooth on this, no sharp frets, and there's no sprout. It looks like a little bit of the finish is worn off in a few spots along the fingerboard. But, you know, overall, considering the age of this guitar, it's in decent condition. So then we're going to take the endoscope later and go through the cavity and see what the bracing looks like inside and everything. And then here's the end. So it's got a rosewood strap button, and then no strap button was actually ever installed on the heel here. So whoever was using it likely used a strap around a nut, like one of those string straps. Alright, so that's kind of the basic overall condition of this guitar. Let's get it on the bench and we'll take some of the parts, or take a look at some of the specs and parts. Alright, so here's the weight. It's weighing in at 4 pounds, 7.9 ounces. Neck profile. So it's got a pretty standard C shape. It stays pretty rounded even up to the 12th fret there. See if I can get it to focus. There we go. Alright, so the width at the nut is 1.56, so it's a little bit of a narrower neck width, and at the 12th it goes up to 2.06. First fret neck depth is 0.80, and at the 11th fret, because the 12th fret kind of starts turning into the heel, it's a 0.989. So a pretty narrow neck, and as far as chunkiness goes, it's pretty average. I would say it's in between like a 60s Gibson neck and a 50s. It feels substantial without being too chunky. Okay, I just want to take a quick look at the truss rod cavity. So there we are. We can see it's still got the factory paint on there, so it's likely never hardly been touched. And the action is set correctly for the neck. So it's got a nice straight neck. See if I can capture that on film here. Yeah, nice straight neck with good relief. And I've checked all the frets and there's no buzz anywhere either. And the fretboard on this guitar is quite nice. It's that kind of dark, streaky, reddish kind of rosewood. It kind of looks like Brazilian rosewood. I cannot confirm that or not, but it looks pretty nice. I've seen a lot of Brazilian rosewood examples that do look like that. But I'm not sure if Gibson was using that in the 60s or not. There is a little bit of pitting on the fingerboard. So when guitars are played pretty extensively, you'll get some nail pitting on the actual fingerboard from the player. And what was interesting about this guitar is the frets were in really good shape. A slight bit of pitting that was buffed out, but the fingerboard was actually worsely pitted than the frets, which is kind of rare to see. But again, they're not to the point where they need repairing. They don't really affect playability. Just it's a little bit of a feeling thing. If they were worse, you could get it repaired. There's a couple different ways to repair it. You can remove all the frets and radius the fingerboard again, or you can use kind of an epoxy and rosewood shavings to build up those spots, but none of that's necessary on this guitar. And you've got your real mother of pearl dot inlays, and the frets are looking really nice as well. So a nice example of a fingerboard there for a 60s Gibson. And I'll just capture the bridge quickly. I'm not sure how much detail I went into it on that, but you can see a little bit of the finish checking that's starting to go into the wood a bit, but not an actual crack yet. And this guitar is so old, I'm usually guitars this old have dried out to the point where not a lot of cracks will open up again, unless it's been humidified its whole life and then it goes to a really dry environment. Then cracks can happen, but for the most part these older guitars have dried out to the point where they're not going to crack anymore. Okay, so next we're going to do the flashlight test. We're going to turn off the lights and flash some light through the sound hole and see where some of the cracks are showing where it may have gone through the wood. Okay, so here we are in the dark, so I'm going to do my best to capture this on film. So basically what I'm going to be doing is shining my flashlight in the sound hole, and then we're going to look at the sides to see if anything shines through. I've already done this off camera, and I can confidently say that there's no spots where the cracks are through the wood. So I'm not sure what you're going to be able to pick up on camera here, but basically I'm shining a very bright light through, and if you have a look at each one of these finish cracks, there's no cracks that are through the actual wood. And then I'm going to switch to the other side, do the same thing. I kind of wish we had one example where it was shining through so you could see what it looks like, but basically the crack would just illuminate and there would actually be some light shining through. And then we'll do the same for the back, because there's a few little finish cracks up at the top, but again we can't see anything shining through, so nothing through the wood. Okay, so now we're going to use an endoscope to check out the inside, the bracing and the purfling and whatnot. So this is my endoscope. Basically it's a power supply with a camera and a light, and then you just fish that in and you can look around on the inside of whatever you want. So I'm going to go ahead and get that started. Okay, here we are looking inside. So the endoscope is a little hard to maneuver exactly where you want it, so I'm actually just watching this footage after the fact and doing a voiceover for what I'm seeing. So that's kind of how I do these segments. We could see the stamped on the bottom was a J-45ADJ stamp, and now we're looking. We can see the heel block. We can see the mahogany back and sides. All solid wood, and yeah, no cracks are showing through the sides anywhere. And there we have our bridge plate. So you can see those little screws on the bridge plate. Those are on adjustable bridges. If you ever were to remove the bridge, you'd have to remove those screws too, so that's kind of an added little feature there. They're hidden under the mother of pearl dots on the bridge. Here we can see some cleats. So the small amount of finish cracking on the top of the body, it looks like it's been addressed at some point. There are some luthier cleats in there. So basically it's just a little diamond pattern piece of spruce, similar to the top of the guitar, that's glued on there in the same grain pattern, just so the crack doesn't ever open up or get bigger. So those two small areas on the top have been addressed with cleats, so those will never open up or get bigger. So that's nice to see that that's been addressed. And you can see on the sides, again, there's no cracking. There seems to be no cracking on the bottom either in any spots. Coming through, the purfling all looks good, and the bracing all looks as it should. So overall, pretty clean, and everything looks the way you want it to. I want to go over the setup and the action a little bit, and we're gonna tune it with the Strobo Plus and intonate it, and show that off as well. So I'm just gonna show how the action is here on the near the nut. So yeah, fretting the third, we can see that the action here on the nut is quite low. See if I can get that a little bit better. But yeah, when I'm fingering the third here, we can see that the action on the first fret is almost just resting against the first fret. So that's kind of how you want it. And now I'm just going to use my notch straight edge to show the relief. I'm just going to move the camera back here so I have a little bit more room. There we go. So okay, here we are. So there we can see that there's just a small amount of gap between the straight edge and the fretboard. That means the action is set correctly. And then we can see the action at the 12th fret here, which is like so. So at the low E, we're looking at about 1.5 to 2 millimeters, and at the high E, about 1 to 1.5 millimeters. So that's quite low action for an acoustic. And then we can go through all the frets and just make sure nothing's fretting out. Alright, so yeah, all the frets are in good shape, and you can play nice and low all over the fingerboard with no buzz. Alright, now we're going to tune up with the Strobo Plus HD, and I have it set on the acoustic guitar sweetener. So this is going to get us as close as possible to being in tune. Alright, now we're just going to try it at the 12th. Alright, so it's intonated really well, and we're tuned up. So okay, let's go ahead and see how this thing sounds. Alright, so here sitting down with the Gibson 1967 J-45ADJ, and let's just hear how it sounds. just strumming it, you can really hear that it's got a nice deep voice, lots of thump that J-45s are kind of known for. So yeah, that really nice bassy tone, but all the notes are pretty clear. You can hear everything. It rings out nicely. But you can really feel this guitar vibrate in your left hand. I find like older guitars, good ones, are nice and resonant, and they really make your left hand vibrate because the whole thing just kind of vibrates as one unit. And I think older acoustics do that quite a bit, and this one's no exception. It's quite nice. I'm just gonna play a little bit of a blues lick so you can hear what that sounds like. Alright, so now I'm just going to do a little bit of finger picking so you can hear what it sounds like a little quieter with some finger picking here. Alright, now we're just trying it out with a capo and a little higher up on the neck so we can hear what it sounds like in the upper registers here. So yeah, sounds great up there as well. Alright, now I'm going to try some really heavy strumming just to see how that sounds. right, so what are my final thoughts on this 1967 J-45ADJ? Well, yeah, it sounds really nice. It really does have a specific sound, so it really has that nice boomy, low-end kind of sound. So if that's not something you're looking for, I would look elsewhere, but it does sound fantastic for what it is. So if you really like that big, boomy, projection, low-end kind of a sound that vintage Gibson's J45s are known for, then this is what you are looking for. Condition-wise, I would consider it good. Not very good or excellent or anything else like that. There are finish checks throughout, some through the finish, not through the wood though, and a couple on the front and a couple on the back. And then it does have those weird water spots on there where the finish reacted with something. But in terms of playability and sound, this thing sounds great, plays great. There's no pull up on the body or bellying from over time. Usually sometimes that can happen. You'll see the bridge actually pulling up the wood from the guitar, but that's not the case on this guitar. It's nice and stable. The bridge appears to have never been lifted. It's stable and low, and there's no signs of a repair done on it. So that's good. And yeah, just a little bit of finish checking near the heel. Someone did a drop fill repair right there near the hill. But the frets are nice and buffed and shiny and in good condition. There's a little bit of pitting on the fingerboard, but our truss rod looks like it has never been touched, and it's responsive and the neck's nice and straight. So yeah, this is a pretty great guitar. Again, the Schaller tuners have been replaced on this example, but no new screws were drilled, so it could be restored with original tuners, but these Schallers are honestly pretty great. They're vintage tuners as well, and they stay in tune really well. Alright, well, that'll be it for today. Thanks for tuning in to Beckler Guitars and Repair. If you're interested in this guitar, I'm going to have it up on Reverb. This is one of those guitars I'm not sure if I'm convinced I'm going to sell it yet, but I will put it up for sale, and if there's any reasonable offers on it, I might consider it. Otherwise, I might just wait for asking price, because I think I'd rather hold on to it than give it away. Alright, thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.